After everything you've heard so far, the powdered wigs, the rogue songs, the scandalous buttons, you might be thinking, surely napping was safe, peaceful, beyond reproach. But alas, not in 18th century France. Because yes, there were actual laws and local ordinances that attempted to regulate the sacred art of the daytime snooze. That let's set the scene. A summer afternoon in a quiet provincial town. The streets are still. The baker is dozing in his chair. The blacksmith has paused mid-hammer. Even the chickens seem subdued. And then, a bell rings. A parish official is making rounds to ensure no one is negligently reclined in civic corridors. That's right, depending on where and how you napped, you might be breaking the law. You see, napping wasn't inherently criminal. But like everything else in this era, it depended on context. In some towns, midday rest was officially encouraged for workers, on the condition that it happened indoors. But in public, especially if you were lying on a bench, leaning against a fountain, or, heaven forbid, sprawled under a tree in a suggestive position, that raised eyebrows and suspicion. Officials worried that public napping blurred the line between rest and vagrancy. Were you tired or loitering? Were you napping or plotting sedition? In certain cities, especially ones with recent unrest, anyone caught sleeping in public spaces could be fined under ordinances meant to discourage languid civic presence. Paris, Lyon, and Tours all had versions of these laws on the books at different points during the 1700s. One man in Bordeaux was famously fined for napping near a public well. His crime? Encouraging disorder by example of horizontal repose. Another woman was warned for public reclining while hatless, which, while possibly a fashion faux pas, hardly seems riotous. But as the thinking went, if people saw one person sleeping peacefully in a communal space, they might think peace was allowed. And in times of political tension, that simply wouldn't do. Own nap zones were designated. Yes, that's right. Some towns actually assigned zones where people were permitted to nap. Often they were cramped, uncomfortable spaces like the corner of a livestock market or behind a tannery. Rest, it seemed, was only respectable if it smelled faintly of manure. Historians still argue whether these nap restrictions were truly about safety and public order or just another way of controlling poor and working-class citizens. The elite, after all, could snooze in salons or private gardens without anyone batting a powdered eyelash. But a laborer leaning back under a tree after hauling barrels all morning? That raised questions. The irony, of course, is that French culture also valued the deceased, especially in southern regions. Letters from the time show aristocrats praising the benefits of a midday rest. Philosophers extolled the virtues of a well-timed doze. And yet, for common folk, the message was clear: nap at your peril. Things got even stranger in the late 1770s when nap supervision was introduced in a few experimental parishes. Local officials were tasked with patrolling designated resting hours to make sure no one overindulged in napping. One record shows a merchant being reprimanded for sleeping longer than the approved 30 minutes. His defense? He dreamed he was still awake. Truly an innovator. Some towns even required permits for extended public rest. Think of it like a nap license. You could apply for it if you were elderly, injured, or a recent parent. But you had to carry the paper on your person, leading to absurd scenes of dozing men being gently poked awake by constables asking, "Permit, please?" As always, people found ways around it. Nap hats with false eyes stitched onto them. Books propped open to imply alertness. One resourceful butcher invented a reclining stool that appeared upright when viewed from the side. Because if history has taught us anything, it's that the human urge to nap cannot be regulated. And yet, underneath all the silliness, these laws speak to something deeper. In an era obsessed with order, appearance, and authority, even sleep was politicized. Rest wasn't a right. It was a privilege, carefully monitored, unequally applied, and always under suspicion. Your eyelids drooping? Better have a good reason. Eventually, these laws faded as the revolution shifted the public mood, and people began reclaiming rest as something radical. Napping, like song or satire, became a tiny act of rebellion. A way to say, I exist, I breathe, I am human, even if that breath came with a snore. And now, as we drift toward the end of our tale, maybe take comfort in the fact that you live in a time and place where no one's checking your sleep permit or measuring the angle of your repose. You're safe. You're still. And unlike those poor 18th century dreamers, no one's about to fine you for relaxing just a little too well. So close your eyes and let's wind down together. Let yourself soften now. Let the images of powdered wigs and button-banning bureaucrats drift gently to the edges of your mind. The candlelit courtrooms fade. The cobbled streets grow quiet again. Even the magistrates, so comically vigilant, are finally closing their heavy ledgers. The parchment curls, the ink dries, and the world, once so full of absurd little laws and whispered songs, begins to hum in stillness. Picture yourself lying beneath a tree, not a forbidden one, but a wide, gentle oak in the middle of nowhere. There are no officials here, no rules, just the sound of leaves moving with the breeze and the soft warmth of the grass beneath you. Maybe there's a stream nearby. Maybe there's a little breeze lifting the edge of your sleeve, that you're not in 18th century France anymore. You're not anywhere that requires a ribbon permit or a shoe inspection. You're just here, safe, quiet, weightless, and as the world outside dims just a little more, so do your thoughts. Let them tumble softly, like scraps of old fabric folding into a drawer. Let the day, with all its edges, melt into something smooth, something safe, something slow that you've done enough. You've learned enough. You've laughed, maybe more than you expected to. Now, just rest, and no one's watching. No one's finding you that you're free to drift.